Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I am very excited because today is going to be all about eyeshadow palettes that I think are worth your coin. Now, I know that eyeshadow palettes are not as popular, but if you are in the market to find a new eyeshadow palette, or if you've just been eyeing an eyeshadow palette and you want to know if it's worth the money or not, this is the video for you. So grab a snack, grab something to drink, and let's dive into the top 10 palettes that I think are personally worth your money. Let me start off by saying I literally was in the middle of getting ready because I'm going to see a musical tonight, which I'm very excited for. So I was like, you know what, let me sit down and film this video. We are gonna dive into everything. So the first two palettes I want to talk about are these right here from Flower Beauty. These are so beautiful. If you are not new to this channel, then you know how much I've raved about this. Literally all last year, these were holy grails. They still are. I feel like they are beautiful, beautiful palettes. Now, the only thing is these are all shimmer palettes, but they are so gorgeous. They look like liquid metal on the eyes. You can get this at CVS or at Ulta, but they are just so beautiful. I absolutely love them. This one is more of like, you know, deeper, sultry. I like to use this one during the fall season. But then we have one that's a little bit more neutral for those neutral lovers. And I just feel like these shadows will take your look to the next level. They are so eye-catching and they literally look like liquid metal on your eyes. They are so, so, so beautiful. They are on the more expensive side of drugstore, but they are truly worth the price. This palette is truly worth every single penny. It is the Blend Bunny Blends palette. I recently just got into this brand, but I started off with one palette and then immediately somehow in the span of 1 month, I ended up with literally almost all of the palettes from the brand. That's how much I just had to have all of them. That's how good I felt that the formula was. And I'm so shocked that for my first palette from this brand, it wasn't this one, which was their first palette they ever came out with. And this is a really, really good palette. Now, it is a rainbow palette. Some of you are probably like, I don't need any more rainbow palettes, but just hear me out. The way that these blend, it's like they blend themselves. They are so creamy and so blendable. It is like, it's insane. I love using this palette, especially paired with the Flower Beauty palettes. I feel like those two complement each other so well. I highly recommend this palette. If you are just getting into Blend Bunny, this is the palette that I would go for first. If you're not into color, there are other palettes you could potentially look into. But this one right here, you will not be disappointed with this. It is so good. And I highly, highly recommend this palette. I feel like this palette did go viral when it first came out. And for good reason, because it is such a high quality formula. And when I tell you these blend themselves, they really, really do. Honestly, all of the rainbow looks you guys have been seeing on my channel in all of my previous videos has been a Blend Bunny palette. Like, that is just how much I love it. In my last video of my purchase or pass, the green shadows in that video from this palette, love it, love it, love it. So of course I had to have it in this video. I have two palettes in here from Glam Light. The first palette I want to recommend is this one right here. This is from the Halloween Scooby-Doo collection. It is the Retro Raggy palette. This is one of my most used eyeshadow palettes in my collection. Now, I am recommending this because it is still available and it's on sale, but can't you just tell that I have tapped into this palette so much? You really cannot go wrong with any Glam Light palette because the formula is really, really good. But these two palettes I have in this video, it's like they took the best of the best formula. I feel like Glam Light has two formulas, one for collabs and then one for like their regular palettes. Both are really, really good. But for the collabs, it's like they're on the level, like they're on a whole nother level, especially these shimmers. Do not get me started with the shimmers, but they are so beautiful. I highly recommend this palette right here. It's such a pretty color story as well. I feel like this is not a color story we normally see in palettes. I love the fact that Glam Light really does give us those different color stories. They kind of like step outside of the norm. It's not like a normal eyeshadow palette we see often, which is also why I really love it. And I just love how you don't need to tap into any other palette to get a complete look out of this. It is the literal best. Now, the other palette I have from Glam Light is the Glam Light Barbie palette. You already know that I was gonna have this in this video. This is my favorite palette from Glam Light, hands down, my absolute #1 favorite. Now, it's a pretty bold palette. Like, don't get me wrong, any look that you create with this, it will be like eye-catching, punchy, you know, bright. But this palette is just so beautiful. Every time I pull out this palette, I create some of my favorite looks I've ever created. You can already tell which shades I've tapped into in this palette. Like that blue shade at the top is one of my most used shades in this palette, but I absolutely love it. I think it is so pretty. If you love blues, purples, and pinks, you're gonna live for this. I do feel like these colors are more like mid-toned, and they do have some pastels in here, but you do get a complete look with this palette, and it's so, so, so gorgeous. You could even go monochromatic if you wanted to with this one, but the formula on this palette is absolutely beautiful. I don't know what they got cooking in the lab at Glam Light, but those palettes are truly worth every single penny. The palette I have is for my neutral lovers, and if you love neutrals and you also love cool tones, this one is for you. It is from Beauty Bay. Of course, I had to have a Beauty Bay, you know, palette in this. Okay, I probably got two. I got two in this video, but I love me some Beauty Bay, and their color stories are always essentials to me personally. So the first Beauty Bay palette is this one right here. This is the neutral palette. This is one of their newer palettes, but she is gorgeous. I think this came out last year, but it is so beautiful. I don't really like cool tones, but every time I want to do a neutral look, this is the palette that I'm reaching for. I love the fact that there's every single tone that I could ever need. If you're a makeup artist, this is gonna be your absolute best friend. But I just feel like all of the Beauty Bay 42 pan palettes are so worth it. I know some of you are probably like, that palette is way too big for me, but I love it, especially at the value that it is for how many shadows that you get. It's like unbeatable. You cannot beat this. And I love having options. This is not a palette that I would use to travel with. These Beauty Bay 42 pan palettes are palettes where if I'm just taking my time playing with makeup or doing other people's makeup, I always pull out this palette because I have every tone that I could ever need. I love trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to pair with what? I also love the formula. It's really, really blendable. Beauty Bay, Glam Light, and Blend Bunny have my top 3 favorite eyeshadow formulas. The next palette I have to recommend is also from Beauty Bay, and this one is more for my pink lovers. If you live for a pink shadow or a pink moment, this is for you. It is the Beauty Bay Berries palette, and I personally think this is my most used Beauty Bay palette out of all of the ones that I have in my collection, because it's something about pink on the eyes that really, really gets me. I feel like it complements my skin tone very well, and it's just one of my favorite shadows to put on the eyes. But this one, hello, literally has every shade of pink you could ever want or imagine. Now, this palette doesn't have much depth in it. If you're looking for like depth, sometimes if you need something, you know, super deep, like a black or really, 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 really deep color, you'll have to pull from other palettes, but I like to keep it simple with this palette. It's so easy and so simple. I'll just take maybe 1 or 2 mattes in the crease, and then I'll go with the shadow on the lid, and I am good to go. Love the looks that I create anytime that I want to do a pink look. This is the palette that I'm pulling from. Next palette I have to recommend that is worth your money is the palette that I'm wearing on my eyes today. This is my favorite summer palette because it just gives me all of the beachy vibe. And I just love that I can get such a neutral look out of this, but it's still so pretty and it's still the kind of tones that I like. This is me in a palette. Like if I was to create a palette, it would probably look pretty similar to this. Maybe with a little bit more pink. I love the gold, I love the burgundy, I love the burnt orange. This palette does have 2 blushes in this palette, but I like to use them as eyeshadows, you know, not really as blush, but this palette is just so beautiful. If I had to recommend any ABH palette, it would definitely be the Primrose because you just get so much for your money. The formula in here is top tier. I feel like this was their first palette where they were playing around with this new formula, and I really do think they knocked it out of the park. These shimmers in here are so soft, but so pigmented. They kind of remind me of the Flower Beauty, except a little bit softer. They just look wet on the eyes. I really, really love them so much. I love this palette. It's so pretty. This palette is a Natasha Denona palette. Natasha Denona has also a really good formula, but this is my personal favorite palette that I do recommend that's worth your money. Now this one is more so for you if you love warm tones, because it's a very warm palette, which I love. And I also think it's perfect for the summer, perfect for the fall. It is just so beautiful. And that is the Natasha Denona Bronze palette. This right here will get you right for summer. It is so beautiful. I just love the coppery, warm tones. Ooh, just looking at this, I feel like this would pair so well with this one. But this palette is just, it is everything. I absolutely love it. I have taken this palette with me for the most special occasions, for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, for my summer vacations. This has been a go-to trusty palette. Now this one does lean very warm, but Natasha Denona has a really good formula. Now we're getting into the last two palettes, and they are very expensive. I'm not saying you have to go out and buy any of these palettes, let me just say that, but if you were to, or if you were thinking about them, these are worth the money. I get the hype. After actually taking the plunge and owning one, technically two of these palettes, I get what the hype is about. I get why it's priced the way that it's priced. It is still very expensive, so if you can get it on sale, I would wait for a sale, but they are worth the money if you just can't wait. You won't be disappointed with at least these two. I haven't tried the rest, but these two, very happy with my purchase, literally no regrets. The first one I have to recommend is the Pat McGrath Utopian Dream eyeshadow palette. I used to work at Sephora long time ago, and every time I would go into work, I would stare at these two palettes, and I would just be like, okay, Tati, today, you're gonna get it today. Then I just would talk myself out of it because I couldn't get myself to spend that much money on an eyeshadow palette. I just literally couldn't. Let me just tell you, this palette has truly exceeded my expectations. It truly has. Now I got this during like their end of year sale, so I think I spent like $78 on this, which is way better than $128. Still expensive, but I'm so happy that I was like, you know what, just do it. Just buy it because you've been eyeing it, you've been wanting it for over a year, 2 years almost. When I really want something that's really expensive, I'll wait. I will wait to see if I come back to it. And if I keep coming back to it, that's how I know I really want it. If I forget about it, then I forget about it. But if I just keep thinking about it, keep going back to the site, checking the site, that's how I know that I really want something. This one, I love it so much. I love this palette so much. There's like a duochrome in here, the Astral Blitz shades. There's some really creamy shimmers. The mattes are so blendable. I will say with the like Astral Blitz shades, you have to use a glitter glue with them. But still, once they're on the eyes, beautiful. They kind of remind me of the shimmers in the Uma Beauty palette that I tried. That Uma Beauty palette gives me these vibes, and I just love it. I see why people love the Pat McGrath Mothership palettes. I see why they collect them, because they are really good. And I, of course, have my eye on some other ones. Now, the other one is more neutral, which I just really don't know why. I'm not usually drawn to many neutral palettes, but this palette really drew me in. It is the Bronze Seduction palette. Now, if you are new to Pat McGrath, I think this will be the perfect introductory palette, especially because it is so neutral, but like you still have like that pop of color. We have like a really beautiful like green shifty shade right here. We have like a white gold shift shade, and we have like, you know, a red. We have some pops of color, but it's still leaning more neutral. But I created some really pretty looks with this palette. It is so beautiful. It really is worth the money. I love these Pat McGrath palettes so much. Trust me, I know they are expensive, but if you ever get one, I really don't think you'd be disappointed with these two, because the formula is so good. The mattes also like blend themselves. They are just so beautiful, and I'm so happy that I finally decided to pick them up, because they are really worth every single penny. But I will say, Pat McGrath has her sales, so you could wait for a sale though. You could wait for a sale, but if you decide to get it full price, the quality, the formula, all of it is included in that, and I feel like you would see exactly why it's priced that way, even though it's very expensive. That is it for today's video. Those are my top favorite palettes that I think are worth the money. Definitely let me know your thoughts down below. Do you have any of these palettes? What are your thoughts? And I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye guys.